something else. And so I was thinking that, I should try and reproduce some of those recipes, mainly because I can remember the flavors. I don't know if I'll be able to get it quite right. I'm no cook. I'm really, really no cook. But the flavors are still in my mind, and I'd really love to try that.
That's a great idea.
But I doubt very many people would be interested.
Well, that's in a sense, it's a harder thing to share with your community, right? Because we're all virtual. But I think it's a great idea because it would allow you to have another sort of sensory means of accessing, memories through senses. And we know that smell is a very significant part of memory. It sounds like a great idea. As growing up through your life, there isn't anything specifically like mementos of Atlantis, of Tantal. The closest thing is artifacts from Egypt and imagery from Egypt. Is that right? Is that
yes,
why?
I never actually saw anything that reminded me of Tantal, other than Egyptian, some Egyptian stuff.
Right.
And because it was never called Atlantis,
right.
It took me a while before I worked out that there was a place that people had described that sounds a lot like Tantal.
Yeah. And the more that you've grown and researched and learned, the more that those two has come together, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I could be completely wrong. It could just be a place called Tantal, and there could have been another place called Atlantis for all I know. But it's just so similar,
Yeah. Honestly, because for you to come forward and communicate this stuff in a form, in the video world and the online world, making yourself visible and vulnerable, I think that's incredibly brave and commendable. So I want to just give you space to acknowledge that it's so much more. It takes so much more that I can't even imagine, right? Because you've lived this life. So yeah, let's just go from there, because it seems like it's a natural place to kind of just want to address for that.
Well, I could never have done it when I was younger. I mean, I had as a career as a chartered accountant. I climbed up the ranks. I was highly respected. I spoke at conferences. I was the financial controller of a big council. And then I moved into projects, implementing large-scale financial systems. So I am the antithesis of the sort of person who would be doing this. My partner is the absolute skeptic. He's a member of the Skeptics Society. He's constantly listening to all the skeptic stuff. And so I've got a person by my side who still believes in me, and yet he's the ultimate skeptic. So I figured, well, he's known me for a long time. He knows I don't lie or tell stories or anything else. And he said that I give him hope that reincarnation is true, but as he and I both feel, there's probably a scientific reason behind it. But we just don't know it yet. He likes evidence. So he says all he has is hope, not evidence. But because he trusts in me, he does have that essence of hope. We arrived in New Zealand when I was about 4.5. And there's a long story to that as well. So we won't deviate there.
Okay.
And so essentially I grew up in New Zealand. I consider myself a Kiwi.
Right. Well, when would you recall around the time where you started experiencing and then relaying these dreams from this particular area, as opposed to, and I think this is another part of the question, as opposed to an ordinary dream?
Well, as far back as I can remember, I knew I was from somewhere else. And that confused me a bit, because I thought, well, we could just pop there and visit. Because when you're little, you think it's just somewhere that you can go for a picnic.
Right.
And my family were also a bit confused by it. So it wasn't until maybe, I guess six-ish, that it became clear that as I had one of these dreams, it would essentially give me another memory of this place that I thought I was from. And when I was very young, I was always talking about Neath, so not Tantal, because Neath was the last place I'd really lived for a very long time. So as a child in my dreams, I was in Cron, then Tantal, and then mainly Neath, but Neath was just my base, and I would go to various other places, maybe live a year or so there. And I happened to have been in Egypt when I died. So Neath was the place that was in the forefront of my mind. And so I kept going on about it.
Is not only is the place itself very different as far as they understand, but you're also speaking about being at a different age, right? Because you're not talking about being 6 years old back then, you're talking about an adult life. Yeah.
In fact, adjusting to being a child was the most horrific part of the experience.
Wow.
I could not cope with the rights of a child. I felt like an adult, and it was beyond my comprehension. It was like, why am I in this situation? What's happened? And my mother used to joke with people, oh, she was born middle-aged. You know, so.
Right, because, you know, to be fair, she wouldn't have a point of reference for how to handle that. That's actually very, very common for kids who recount past lives, is having the challenges of adjusting to being in this little body. Yeah, that happens.
So because my parents would say, just keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody, they'll think you're, you know, a little strange.
Right.
And I guess I always have been a little strange. I'm probably a difficult person to get to know because I'm a little eccentric. I'm a bit colorful. I have a very weird sense of humor. And I've often felt like I didn't quite fit in. So I felt most of my life I've had to, what should I say, dumb down my personality, my quirks. So
it's been really hard your whole life to have to sort of wear a mask.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you came out with this, so to speak, came out of the closet about this. It was only fairly recently in terms of the public?
Yeah, just a year ago. So I retired at the age of 55 because I've got an elderly mother, and she really isn't capable of being on her own, but she's so adorable. So she's an absolute joy. I was clearing out the garage. I had one of those great big bins where you throw all your rubbish in. And I was pulling things out of the garage, and there was several boxes of journals, and I so nearly threw them into the bin because I thought, what am I ever going to do with them? You know? And something inside me said, no, just put them to one side. So I got one of those great big plastic containers, and I stuck them in one of those, and off they went into storage while we got the property sorted. And I opened them up, and once again I'm thinking, what do I do with these journals?
How many would you say approximately?
Maybe 200.
Wow.
So anyway, I started reading them, thinking, well, I'll just pick out a few that are really good, keep those for posterity, and just throw the rest away. And so I opened one up, and I mean, these journals weren't just for dreams; they were everything, including, you know, who I was seeing on the 2nd of December about a project to do with whatever. And so it was like everything. So I'd have to wade through a few pages. There's a dream. And I can't throw that one out. You know, and I kept them all, and then I sort of, once we'd moved in and everything was sorted, and I was, I just kept thinking about those journals, and I was thinking, well, I'm not doing much at the moment. So that's when I decided that, maybe I should see if anybody's interested. So I went through them, and I found the cutesy stories, the nice ones, the lovely dreams, because there's some pretty horrible ones as well. But they're not that common. The horrible ones aren't a particularly common factor, but they are so horrible that it's kind of, Anyway, so like the cat dreams and the going to the university dreams and things like that. So I thought they were the nice dreams. But as I got into them and was doing more and more of them, the questions I was being asked by people was about, what did you see when it came to the block work? What tools did you have for stuff? And of course I had all those answers very easily, because I've had very detailed dreams on that. So that's when I started doing the technology dreams.
I mean, those make sense for anyone to ask, and I went to those too, because it's something evidentiary that you can compare it to. I'm curious if what you're recalling is the visual memory in your mind, or is it from what you journaled and you're using the journal as the source for you?
Well, once I found it in the journal, I kind of remember it better.
Okay.
But it's mostly, I wouldn't actually have picked on that particular story if I hadn't have found it in the journal.
Yeah.
And as soon as I read it in the journal, it's just back in my mind, and I'm there again. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like rereading a book that you've read before.
Yeah. Okay.